More of the Common Sense Club, standing for faith, family, freedom, and free enterprise. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week from the heartland of America. And we're pleased to welcome one of our friends, former Speaker of the House, and someone whose presidential campaign energized a whole lot of folks here in energy country. Newt Gingrich is back with us on the Common Sense Club. Welcome back, Mr. Speaker. How are you?
I'm doing great, and I've been talking about North Dakota and the extraordinary energy story all over the country. It's the model for the rest of the country about how to create energy. It's just remarkable.
You may remember this during the presidential campaign. You said, Scott, I want to come to North Dakota and do an energy state of the union, really to focus on North Dakota energy. We'd still love to have you, by the way, and there's a lot to love, isn't there?
There really is. It's one of the great, amazing stories of all time.
So let me first get your take. The conventions are in our rearview mirror now. The Republicans, which you were part of, the Democrats in Charlotte booing God. That was amazing. And Obama's speech not exactly getting a lot of accolades. But what's your take, on where we rest today after these two conventions behind us?
Well, I wrote a newsletter this week that people can get at GingrichProductions.com, in which I said there were three numbers that would dominate Obama's acceptance speech. The first was the unemployment number, which came out this morning. The second was the price of gasoline, which was a historic high in Charlotte. And the third was the $16 trillion in national debt. And I think those three numbers, 8.1%, $3.79 a gallon, and $16 trillion, those three numbers make a mockery of his acceptance speech. Obama has the worst economy since the Great Depression. You have to go back 75 years to find anything comparable. And I think it's impossible for them to defend it. So I think Romney is in position to win. This is going to be a tough campaign for 60 days. The left is going to become desperate. They're going to do anything they can to try to pull this off. But I distinguished in this column I wrote this week between conventions that are achievement conventions and conventions that are accusation conventions. And I said, if you go back and look at Reagan in 84, their theme was Morning in America. Their slogan was leadership that's working. They didn't talk about Jimmy Carter. They talked about the great achievements that they'd made. And they weren't much worried about defining Walter Mondale. They were worried about convincing people that Ronald Reagan's program was working. When you get to Charlotte, you have an accusing party that has nothing they can claim they did well, except maybe take care of the United Auto Workers. And the result is they have to spend all their time attacking Republicans. And I think it tells you how weak their position is.
What is a bigger danger sign, in your view, Obama himself as president, or the fact that he's in a position to actually have a chance at re-election? It seems to me that we, as folks who care a great deal about our country, who fear greatly a Obama re-elected with no fear of re-election. Imagine the damage he could do there. I mean, he's done enough, wanting to get re-elected. Imagine what he'd do if he didn't care about getting re-elected. Or is it the fact that there's actually people out there that still are willing to go vote for this guy, given the damage he's done, given the fact that he has such a thin resume? Isn't that a bigger problem?
Well, look, I think a re-elected Obama would be a nightmare. And I think that we have no idea how radical he'd be. I think his appointments would turn the Supreme Court into the equivalent of the Ninth Circuit Court for radicalism. But it also tells you, despite the economy, despite the failures, despite everything, he has probably a 40 or 45% base that is now ideologically so far to the left that they will tolerate almost any performance failure in order to keep a momentum of bigger and bigger government and more redistribution and more social radicalism.
That's the biggest threat to America, though, isn't it? That group of people.
Oh, sure. I mean, Obama, in a way, is a symptom of them. Without them, he wouldn't exist. And I thought what they did in the convention told you a lot. I mean, this is a convention which took God out of an explanation of America. It's a convention which took Jerusalem out of Israel as its capital. And when they tried to put it back in, I suspect that they had a roll call, they did not have two-thirds of the votes to put it back in.
Over the span of your career, you have educated and motivated a lot of conservatives. It seems to me the clarion call to conservatives is to engage in conversations with coworkers, family members, everyone within their sphere of influence to go exactly to that symptom. To literally engage these people that are in that 45%, because that's the biggest threat to America. Would you agree that that's what we got to do more than what we've done in any previous election individually?
I think so, and that's why last week at the convention, I spent 4 days doing Newt University, which is available at newtuniversity.com, and we put up all sorts of ideas. We spent 2 hours in energy. We had both Harold Hamm and Senator Hoeven talking about North Dakota, for example, and I think that that's really the approach we've got to take. This is the greatest educational campaign in modern times, and we have to go out and educate all of our friends and neighbors into why it would be so fundamentally disastrous for Obama to get reelected.
Tell us about the energy piece of Newt University, because I heard you talk about how Mika and Joe Scarborough were there from MSNBC's Morning Joe and walked away from that with a real education on energy that motivated them towards the idea that the Romney-Ryan camp would have a lot better energy policy than Obama ever has.
Well, both Harold Hamm and Senator Hoeven did a great job describing and explaining what had happened in the last 10 years in North Dakota. And, when you look at 2.7% unemployment, you compare it to the national average, you look at 7 consecutive tax cuts, $1 billion in a rainy day fund. There's a lot to be said about North Dakota and how much it has progressed and what it is doing. And it was very funny because Mika Brzezinski, whose father, of course, Zbigniew Brzezinski, was Jimmy Carter's national security advisor, Mika and Joe Scarborough called me and said, "Gee, can we come over and be students?" And I said, "Sure." I said, "But I want Mika to come and wear a T-shirt." So she was there wearing a Newt University T-shirt. She said, when they were filming her, she said, "If my dad sees this, his jaw is going to drop." They sat through the briefings, and the next day I did Morning Joe with them, and both of them said on the air, I thought on MSNBC this was remarkable, both of them said on the air that they had fundamentally changed their opinion about energy based on the facts they had learned at Newt University the day before. So I felt like that alone was a pretty big justification for what we had done.
I heard you say that on Meet the Press this past weekend, which I think is fantastic. In the minute we have left, what can North Dakota show the rest of the country on energy, and how can it affect the economy?
Well, I think everybody in North Dakota who could email or Facebook or tweet their friends all across the country and just say, look, we need an American energy independence plan, exactly like Mitt Romney's describing. We need a chance to get America back, creating our own energy, creating our own jobs, keeping the money here at home. It will be better for our national security, be better for our balance of trade, and it will lead to a revolution in manufacturing in America. And then second, from the standpoint of North Dakota, we have to get the pipeline built. It is wrong to require you guys to ship all that oil out by rail. It ought to be coming out in a pipeline. It would reduce the cost of marketing by $3 or $4 a barrel, and that money would go back into the pockets of North Dakota.
Fascinating conversation, as always, with our friend Newt Gingrich, former Speaker of the House, and we look forward to having you out here in North Dakota, continuing that energy conversation between now and Election Day, and connecting it to the price of gas, pocketbooks, the economy, and everything. It's integral, and you do a better job than most out there in explaining it to folks. Thanks, Newt. Appreciate it.
Great talking to you.
Take care. Newt Gingrich, our guest on the Common Sense Club and the Scott Innes Show, talking to the Heartland. More coming up. Don't go away.